He's doing the camera, huh? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We're now going to start the main program with the recitation of Quran by Zaid.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم وإن تطيعوا الله ورسوله لا يلتكم من أعمالكم شيئا إن الله غفور رحيم إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله أولئك هم الصادقون قل أتعلمون الله بدينكم والله يعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض والله بكل شيء عليم يمنون عليك أن أسلموا قل لا تمنوا على إسلامكم بل الله يمن عليكم إن هداكم للإيمان إن كنتم صادقين إن الله يعلم غيب السماوات والأرض والله بصير بما تعملون صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Today we're very fortunate to have Bilikisu Savage, who will be speaking to us on Proudly Muslim and Black Insights and Recommendations. Let's welcome our Salaat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Bilikisu is the chair of the Muslim Council of Britain's Proudly Muslim Black Committee and the main author or collator of the report which she has right in front of her there. Salawat.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm deeply honored, mashallah, I'm deeply honored. And I'm totally grateful for the warm welcome I received from the entire community. It's me, Bilikisu Savage. I am the chair of Proudly Muslim and Black Committee for the Muslim Council of Great Britain. And we're fortunate on the 22nd of September to be able to publish this report, basically race faith community in the contemporary Britain. As we all know, Black Muslims, we are still a minority. And even though we're a minority, we're a very powerful minority because Muslim, mashallah, Islam is one of the growing religion globally and the UK. And because of that, 3 years ago, we within MCB, Muslim Council of Great Britain, thought about a project to showcase the work Muslims are doing in this country. Over the years, it's always very negative about Muslims, as you all know, particularly since 9/11. The only thing you hear about Muslims is terrorism, 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 or the negative aspects of a Muslim as a woman. I've always been proud to be a Muslim woman. Showcasing my religion is something. I was brought up in Nigeria. I came here when I was 17, but my identity is my religion. I'm proud to associate being a Muslim. Over the years, as you all know, my fathers, my sisters, some of you have probably lived here longer than I have. I've only been here 41 years, mashallah. But one of the things I'm always proud about is the achievement of the Muslim community. Be it black, Asian, we are one in religion, as the verse in Ujrat says. No person is superior than one, as the last sermon of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, peace be upon him, has said. No person is superior than the other. We are one in our religion. And for that reason, it was felt that we need to reflect on what has been achieved within our community collectively. We need to document it because over the years, there's no record of our achievement. And I think it's important to pause to think about COVID. When COVID happened in 2020, majority of the negative impact was on the Muslim community. Our doctors, our nurses were more impacted. They were the one at the front line. They were the one working hard, and yet they were the one dying as well. We all know that. Access to NHS is something else, for Muslims particularly, because as Muslim women, it's not always easy to see a female consultant. It's not always easy to see a female doctors. It depends where you live, it depends where your doctor is. So in terms of our need as a Muslim, it is very difficult. Yet, there are enormous numbers of Muslim doctors in NHS. A lot of Muslim doctors in NHS, a lot of Muslim nurses in NHS as well. But are they progressing? Are they the top people in the NHS? They're not. So that's why this collection of essays was put together to document the lived experience of people in this country, what they've gone through, their achievement, to put on record what we collectively has achieved over the years. It's personal to some people, but it's now open record for the government. What we're hoping to do with this publication is, we're hoping that policymakers within the government, inshallah, will be able to think about working with us as a community, because we want to influence policy, especially within the education system. The education system is very important because education is very powerful. And I say this because we all know the politics of gender. We are now living in a different world of, should I call you a man? Should I call you a woman? Are you this? It is very sensitive and it's very political. And we as Muslims, we have to be aware of that. And that's partly the reason why we need to be part of influencing policy. Again, I use my own experience in the sense that I'm also fortunate to be a magistrate in this country. I've been a magistrate since 2008, and I was actually in court yesterday. I say that to reference the fact that proportionally, we're about 5% of the population. But since 9/11, a lot of our youngsters are in prison, are in detention. A lot of our youngsters have been stopped and searched nearly every day. And this is why we want government to work with us, because the number of Muslims in prison is disproportionate to the number of people in the population. It's a fact. So what we're hoping to do with this publication is to showcase that we want more Muslim across the board, more Muslim across the board in every field, because we are representative in religion. In terms of, you look at sport, you have Mo Farah, you have Mohamed Salah playing, you have these footballers living in this country, playing, contributing to this economy. But we want them to be representative across the board. We want more Muslim managers, not bottom of the pile, not bottom of the grade. I'm fortunate that, yes, also as a magistrate, I also work for the civil service. Relatively, you could say I'm a senior manager, but there are very few black Muslim women in management. But particularly for me as a mother, I've got 3 young men. I want them to grow in this society, our children, to be in government. you look at both sides of the politics, yes, we now have few black faces. Yes, it's true. But I'd like to see women in hijab in parliament. I would like to see that. Kudos to Nasha from Yorkshire, one of our Muslim MP. Kudos to her and other women of MP. But that there's just very few Muslim women. And I stand corrected. You know, I haven't seen, you know, Muslim men as MP. We need more of us representing our population. And this is one of the reasons when we wrote this report is sectionalized. We have politics, we have education, we have sports, and yet we have migration, immigration. So we have different sections, and that's why I'm picking up on topics. And we have education, picking up on topics to say the experience of each. In terms of migration, we see what's happening in Afghanistan, we see what's happening in Libya, we see what's happening in Lebanon, and people are coming over, quite rightly, because they've got family in this country. But it's very, very difficult now for people from those countries, Afghanistan, Lebanon, Syria, to come and settle here. But on the opposite, we have people from Ukraine. It was a different politics. So those are the conversations we want to have in terms of how we can have a conversation with the government to listen to our needs, the Muslim community needs. Because when you look at the all sector of the economy, retail, mashallah, you know, we're there. When you look at medicine, we're there. And, you know, you look at BBC and ITV media, we're there. But what we're not is the management hierarchy. And that's partly why we're having this conversation. We want to showcase the achievement of we as Muslims, what we've been able to achieve. Relatively, we've been here very young, you know, probably less than 50 years, or some people might say 50 years and above. I've lived here 41 years. I know our fathers have been here longer. But in terms of the growth of migration of Muslim, it was in the late 80s that, you know, more Muslims were settled in this country. And as a result of that, yes, we're settling, proportionally we're doing well, but we're not in leadership. And that's why it's really important to be able to have the opportunity to come here to explain to you that, you know, you see in the media negative aspect. There's no doubt about it. But we know within our community, Muslims are achieving far and more, and also contributing more to the economy. And, you know, without a doubt, you know, I'm always proud that the amount of madrasa we have now. Because I remember in the early 80s when I first came here, the only mosque I used to go to Central Mosque. And I remember my late mother, may her soul rest in peace, when she came, it was Central Mosque, Baker Street, you know. So you look at it now, virtually every part of London, South London, North London, we have a lot of madrasa. We're teaching ourselves, and I want to learn the full Quran more because it is what we need to understand the path to our religion. So for that, and that's part of the experience we want people to know, we have come together as a community to build up that community, to create those establishments, education, because education is so powerful. And without any subsidy from the government, unlike the other faiths, you know, if you set up a private school now, you can get great, you know, people get grant aid to set up, you know, through, there's a way they do it in private school. But a lot of madrasa mosques, we don't get any grant from the government. We have done it within our community. You know, we've used our money to build up this mosque education to teach our children. And this is one of the things we want the government to understand. We are not terrorists. You know, it's always very difficult for me to use that, but I have to be honest. We're not. Some people see you. When I go to court, my head is covered because it's part of my religion. And I do presentation on being a magistrate. Now, you're covered. You can be covered. There's nothing stopping you to be a magistrate as a Muslim. Because I always want people to understand that. Because I want our young people to be that. It is accepted. That's my religion. And when I took the oath with Quran. It is accepted. What I want to see more is more of us to be part of that society. And I say that because those are the achievements that we need to showcase for our future generation, our children. And this madrasa we're building to educate our children is part of our legacy, to teach them the religion of Islam, that is a peaceful religion. So for me, it's really important to be able to have this opportunity to talk to you, because we are one ummah, we are one, one religion, and people should not feel threatened when they see us as Muslim, and the fact that we pray 5 times a day should not be a threat to anybody, in essence. And the fact that we dress covered, because I'm very, very conscious about, for me, I appreciate, that the fact that we're covered should not be a threat to anybody, mashallah. But I do know some people do feel threatened. And when I go to court sometimes, people feel threatened that I'm covered. They're just not comfortable with that. But one thing I show them is my taqwa and my character. I work with them, I try and teach them, I become their friend. And when they warm up to you, they become less frightening. And I always want to use that our religion is a peaceful religion. And through our taqwa, through our behavior, they will understand that they shouldn't be frightened that we're not terrorists. So that's part of the reason why I'm really grateful that today, we're living in a very changing Britain, and we need to change the narrative. For me, it's about changing the narrative, because the media has always focused on the negative aspect of being a Muslim. And it's for me and for us as a community to work together to change the narrative. We have a growing population of young Muslim men, women living in this country, and most of them, their identity is very important to them. My children are being brought up as Muslim, and I hope, mashallah, and there's no other way. That's their religion. But what I want them to have is a confidence that they can live in a free, non-discriminatory society. Because each time they go out, the threat of being stopped and such is something, as a mother, I'm always afraid. The fact that they're with their Muslim friends should not be a threat to anybody. And as mothers, as parents, it's one of the things that, we all pray that, when they grow older and beyond, when we're gone, they can pass on the religion as well. For them to do that, the society have to be comfortable for them. The society have to allow them to practice their religion. And for me, working within MCB as the proudly Muslim and Black community, one of the things we are very fortunate to have is that I believe personally that, we're a great resource. We have a great resource in our community, and we need to showcase it. We need to celebrate it. And we need to, hopefully, through this publication, show that we have a lot within our community to give back to societies. So I'm going to pause there to take some questions if there's any question at this point. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Any questions?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
There's a famous book by Audre Lorde that says the master's tools can never dismantle the master's house. And if we look to America, there's levels of black representation, police commissioners, and even the president. We saw maybe a lot more achieved, things like police brutality, etc., with kind of black radical Muslim movements in the US. So do you feel like the energy we spend maybe engaging with the government and trying to achieve more representation here would be better spent trying to create more of these radical groups and kind of, keep it going? And I mean, obviously, if we look to America, the CIA wiped out these movements and they never really recovered. But should we be trying to revive that, or should we be engaging with the government more and more?
Thank you, brother. That's very thoughtful question. I've thought about it because I've worked in the civil service for 35 years. So I'm at the forefront of what you're saying in effort. And it's really food for thought. Should we be radical or should we work with the government? And it's really unfortunate that the last 12 years, we've had the coalition government, we have conservative government, and we're there now. They've not warmed up to the Muslim society, even though you have the likes of Baroness Saida Wasi there, you have a few Muslims within the government. They've not warmed up, and there's Islamophobia, whether we like it on record. And I'm a bit wary about that because genuinely, we need a lot of energy to be able to work with the government. And they have to be willing to listen to us. And that's why I'm a bit wary. Now, the opposite side is, your question is, should we form that radical group as they do in America? I think there's mileage in us being, we have different groups. We have the Muslim Council of Great Britain. We have a lot of mosque affiliates. I think the great thing for us to do is to work together and to be able to influence, through our working together and collaboration, influence government policy. I think there's a starting point. This report, we were lucky to have Lord Woolley, who was a cross-bench Lord, sitting in Lords. He wrote the report. He wrote the forward for the report, and it was at the launch. Thank you to my brother there that was able to facilitate that for us. I think the Muslim community, to answer your question, needs to work together. We're more cohesive now, I must say, within the Black, within the Asian Black. We're more cohesive now. But I think through the younger generation, we need to start working together and on a strategic level to be able to influence policy. Then we can reach out to the government. I'm not saying it's because of the conservative, and I'm not saying Labour will be better, but I think where we are now, they have a different priority. And that's why I would say we need, especially because of what's happened in Afghanistan, what's happened with Ukraine, we see a different policy. I think it's a time for us to work together to change the narrative. And I think that's a very good thing, that we need to be mindful that should we work with the government, should we work among ourselves? I would say we should work more. Because if they see us united, if they see a united religion among what we do, they're bound to listen. Thank you.
Thanks very much. What do you think is stopping Black Muslims from going on to obtain those leadership positions that you talked about?
From my perspective, a number of things. For the woman, as a woman, let me start from that perspective. Over the years, there's ample racism. There's no doubt about it. Mashallah, some people say I'm strong, but I'm strong because of my religion. Because when I'm faced with challenge, I only need to pray and fast. But even though, like I said, I'm a magistrate and I'm a senior manager working for one of the civil service department, it takes a lot of God to do what I do, because you're faced with racism all the time. And, I've been in meetings where people will say to me, all Nigerians are liars. They're looking for reaction. They want to provoke you. They want to see your reaction. If I react to them, it is me that will be subject to disciplinary. So to answer your question, what is stopping a lot of Black Muslims across the board? It's not that we're not competent. It is by virtue of, I use the example of Sunuk Richie, who was just contested from my perspective. He was quite competent, right? It's a different religion, yes. But the country was not ready for him. The country was not ready for him. And that's what we, as a Black Muslim, face in general. Somehow, it's going back to what I said. Somehow, they always see us as terrorists. They feel threatened by the way we dress. And one of the things I've learned, because I've been trying to get into senior grade, this upper grade, is once you're a senior manager, you know what goes on, and they don't want you to know. So there's that element of not wanting you to be at the table. There's that element not wanting you to know what goes on behind. So for me, it's not about competency, because I do a lot of mentoring and coaching. In this day and age, for us as Muslim, whether you're old, young, you need to be very competent in what you do. You need to have your qualification. It's not just about experience. I say that openly to everybody now. You need to be very competent in everything you do. I never used to do this because I'm a quite shy person. But I've learned to do this, to answer your question. If you want to be a leader, unfortunately, you have to have the confidence, the skills to be able to do this. So I had to learn that. So sometimes it's not about the skills, it's not about the qualifications, it's about the experience. It's about people allowing you and giving you the opportunity to be at the table. And that's what we need to train ourselves, that yes, we can do it, get the training, get the opportunity, get the training, get the experience, but inshallah, Allah will give you the opportunity, because that opportunity is people giving you the opportunity to be at it, to have a seat at the table. So I encourage everybody to do that. What's stopping us, I would say, yes, discrimination is a bigger part of it, not qualification or experience.
Thank you very much. One question from YouTube online, from Muhammad Jafar. How much of a role can MCB play on this issue in England?
MashaAllah, we're hoping MC can play a role. It's been very difficult for MCB because I said, there's a bit of the media that is very negative about MCB. Again, it's to do with religion. There's a bit of threat that this powerful organization, what MC can say is what we're hoping MC can do, again, through our community, it's about engagement. We're going out to our community, we're reaching out not just to our community, but to the wider community, to work with organizations, to enlighten them, to inform them, to educate them. So MCB is doing that. It's a lot of work, and it's working with the media as well. It's a difficult aspect for us to cross the bridge, but we're hoping that MCB will be at the forefront and working tireless to change the narrative, because it's a big ask to do.
Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I've got a comment on the first question and then a question.
Okay.
So the comment, I've looked at pressure and change in leadership and management,
Yes.
and whether radicalism works better or collaborative. So not in this context, but in the context of leadership and management. And actually you need both. And you need both for two reasons. One is we're all different as human beings, and we all react to situations differently. So we can't have a straitjacket that works for everybody. Also, collaborative arrangements work best when there is, from sort of different corners, there is pressure and there is radicalism elsewhere, because that makes those conversations, there's a reason to have those conversations.
Yeah.
So I would say you actually need both in this regard as well.
Thank you.
And though they don't work together, they're actually complementing one another. The question is, this report, how do we get hold of it?
There's soft copy our email so that it can be displayed. There's a soft copy that people can have access to.
Thank you. And the data, how old is the data?
It's quite recent. The report was commissioned in 2019. 2019, and it was published. I mean, we should have published it December, but we just published it 2022. So it's very recent, and it's quite as accurate as it can be, because, like I said, most of the data we use are people's who work in the field and able to document what they do. And some of the data are actually with references at the back. So there's reference of where the data has been got.
Thank you.
Bilikisu, thank you very much.
Sure.
I don't know if you said you've been here 40 years, yes? So
I came in 81.
not so long. So
I like that.
In the late 60s, when most of the Muslim students were overseas students.
Yes.
There was not a resident.
Yes, yes.
Well, not a big resident
No,
community.
no.
But they were quite energized by a visit from Malcolm X,
Yes.
Abdul Malik Shabazz, that time. And for years after that, I remember we were always studying his works, his life, getting inspiration from it. And obviously, that was a much more radical perspective than we could even understand in this country at that time. But over the time, things have changed. Obviously, as you say, we have a lot of resource, hidden resource in our community.
Yeah.
But I just want you to reflect on this particular case of Dr. Hadiza Bawa
Oh, okay.
and the treatment she got and the support she got or didn't get.
The lady from Leicester?
She was a Nigerian
Yes,
doctor.
yes, from Leicester,
yes.
pediatrician from Leicester.
And
yes.
she was deregistered
yes,
and then
yes,
re-registered.
Yes, and
and
registered
so
again, yeah.
I know that a lot of my friends supported her, doctor friends and so on.
Yeah.
But I don't know in the wider
Community.
Especially Nigerian or even black community, how she was received.
Mashallah, because I followed the case. That's a good example of the support. And I think it's really powerful that you mentioned that, because I think, to be fair, she didn't get any support within the wider community. I can say that to you. I think she was lucky and Allah favored her, because it was a long fight. And what happened to her, from what I understand, to summarize, could have happened to any doctor. But she was dealt more severely purely because of her religion, and because she was more or less treated overseas to the Muslim woman, hijabi woman, and that was it. What happened was, to be fair, yes, it's sad, but the treatment she got, how she was there, was totally different. And she didn't get any support within our community. You're right. And these are one of the things I feel that we Muslims should work together. Because I think it was a case of she was lucky, Allah favored her, and some people within GMC, honest, good people, supported her to highlight the fact that, yes, while she was on duty, there are certain things she should have done better that she didn't do, and as a result, a young person died. But it was intentional. She didn't have any, it was our first day on duty that day that incident happened. And unfortunately, she was running around, the only person on ward, and eventually what happened. And in a way, for me, it goes to show that we need more of us in leadership to support ourselves. And that's a classic example of, why we need more of us. Because I did follow the case of Dr. Addis, and thank you for that, because that's a classic example. We need more of us. And I'm always passionate about more of our young ladies, more of our young men to be more Muslim doctors. Mashallah, we have more now. You're right that. We have more now, but we need more, because I like to be able to go to any hospital and be reassured that I will see a Muslim female doctor. I like to be reassured. And I hope one day we get to that point. The opposite now is in court, you see more young female lawyers.
Yes.
It's amazing.
So,
thank you for that. Yeah.
Just to take your point further, if we had one or two members on the GMC council who were Muslims, she might have had a much more easier ride. So that's my way of thinking forward.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you for that. That was a good case to highlight. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions before I come to one over here? From the whole of your report, which of the examples do you like the most? And can you talk about anyone that you like the most?
Okay. Funny enough, when I was coming here, I was reading out, because Munira, And I want to tell you why I picked Munira program part. Just so Munira. Yes, okay. I picked Munira because, Munira Williams. I just want to get it right. I picked Munira because she was a Christian before, and she converted. And she's very formidable Muslim now. And amazing. If she didn't tell her story, you would not know. So her report, her essay is on page 252 of the report. And she explained her story of how she became a religion. And it was through the impact of a female sister that came from America that showed her a passion in sport. And when you read the story of how she became a Muslim and the sport she does, it shows how I was saying about taqwa initially, about having good character, how you can have people understanding that this religion is a religion of peace. Because this woman was a Muslim, and now I was a Christian. She converted because somebody showed her the essential part of our religion. And that was the one I felt that was really impactful on me. So it's Munira Williams' essay is on page 251, and I think it's very powerful for all of us to amplify the beauty of Islam. Because through that, more and more people come to our religion. And I think that's one of the powerful things I took away from that.
Thank you. Any final questions before we end?
I'd love your thoughts on how Europe is changing, because I think Brexit, a lot of Brexit was because of this. People, yes. Caucasian English people are worried about how their society is changing. Do you have some sympathy for people who are suddenly finding that where they've lived is changing very fast for them and they feel uncomfortable about it? It's just fear.
Okay. I'll tell you my story to explain that. I came to the UK September 81, straight from secondary school, because I was fortunate my parents could afford for me to be an overseas student. The very first day I came to the UK, I saw the Queen going to Commonwealth meeting. And my guardian at the time from Plymouth said to me, "Oh, Bilikisu, I've lived in the UK for all this time. I've never saw the Queen. Now you saw the Queen first." And I'm thinking, it didn't really occur to me. I was driven to the end of Cornwall, first day. I lived there for a couple of weeks before I went to boarding school in Northampton. This was 81. In Northampton at the time, a few Muslims, because it was boarding school. In fact, in the boarding school at the time, I was the only, there was one or two other openly practicing Muslims. Very few, but it was okay. Then I came to London to do my HND, not London Polytechnic, now university. Then went to East London to do my degree. And I remember the time, Barking was working class. Barking was, I used to live in Stockwell, Barking was working class, very few. And since 84 onwards, I've lived in London. And I remember then, you could count very few, like I said, very few mosques, very few Nigerians, very few of us as Muslim. I know them within our community. Now, to answer your question, I then set in the South London, work in the civil service. Even in civil service, then very few Muslim. But the reason why I'm saying this, because I can understand and I empathize. But the question is, in this country, I think what we have to understand is the fact that in the 60s, they have no black, no Irish, no, the faith's always been there. The faith's always been there. But for some reason, they have more fear of us being Muslims. And that is really what I'm struggling to understand. Because we had a lot of young elites from Nigeria that came to the UK in the 40s to study. They were the elite of Nigeria. They came to Cambridge, Oxford. The nurses like the Caribbean, they came here, studied, and went back. It is only in the late 80s, 90s, more people came here. But going back to what our father said, in the 40s, 60s, there was also a fear of blacks, Irish, Asian. There's always that fear. But suddenly, the more we have more Muslims coming to the country, there's more fear. There's sympathy, but I have sympathy for them to understand our religion. But the point I make is this. We're very resourceful. Very, very resourceful. We're contributing. And I say that strongly because the evidence is there. You go into King's College Hospital in South London. You go into St. Thomas's. You go into St. George's, because I know those hospitals. And you look at the wards weekend, especially weekend, 95.9% are black people working. A proportion are Muslims. I can say that. So you can understand, yes, maybe people are coming here. It's a global thing, migration. It's a global thing because when you look at what's happening in Afghanistan, again, Libya, Syria, Lebanon, people have been displaced. And overnight, you have Ukraine, the door was open. So we do have sympathy to understand, but there shouldn't be any more fear because we're Muslims. That's my point. There should not be any more fear because we're Muslims. If anything, good, honest Muslims are more pious and we're more welcoming. We're more welcoming. And it's just, this is why I feel that we need to work together for them to understand the religion better. I think the fear is what is preventing that understanding. That's my interpretation of it. And I think those are the things we within our community should be able to discuss about, to educate ourselves to that. We understand the fear, but we are good, honest Muslims, and they should not be afraid of our religion. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. We will end there. Salaat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Thank you. And just before we close, just a couple of announcements. Next week we have Sharmin Ziauddin. She's a multimedia journalist and podcaster who will be speaking about podcasting and amplifying women's voices. On the Saturday we have the Milad al-Nabi celebration, and the following Friday we have Faduma Hassan who will be speaking to us about her time at the leader of the opposition's office under Keir Starmer. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.